everybody, I am here with your headlines, your astrology headlines for the month of November. So I also have a free newsletter on my website you can sign up for, where I'll have all of these dates as well as summaries of what they mean. But I like to do a little YouTube video as well. Some people like the YouTube better. It's nice, I think, the newsletter, because you can have it in your mailbox, like in your inbox, and then you can look at it, refer back to it. But everyone's different, but I like to talk about astrology. So it's my channel. I'm going to talk about astrology. And November has a lot of stuff going on. November is like a big month astrologically for the year 2024. So let's get into it. All right. So we have a lot going on. And I know that, it's of particular interest, I think, especially for Americans, because there is the American election coming up. We know there's been a lot of drama going on around the election. And so I think there's been a lot of focus by astrologers on that. And even if you don't live in the United States, like I don't live in the United States, I live in Canada, we're still affected by it. We're still affected by it. We're right next door. So how can we not be, right? So let's get into it. What's going on in November? So I'm going to go in order of kind of the big headlines. Now, these here are things like the new moon, the full moon, planets changing signs, any kind of really important aspects that are going on. If you want things that are more detailed, I do have on my Patreon detailed weekly astrology, but this gives you the over idea of kind of the energies for the month of November. So first off, right on Friday, November 1st, we have a new moon in the sign of Scorpio at 9 degrees of Scorpio. So new moons are a great time to set intentions and set goals, because the sun and the moon are in the same sign. So you could see it as like the conscious, which is the sun, and the subconscious, which is the moon, working together. It's a masculine, feminine, active and passive, however you want to describe that. But you have these energies, these opposite energies that are working together. It's also the beginning of the lunar cycle. So anything from the new moon to the full moon is growing with the moon. So if you set an intention now, it's going to grow over the next 2 weeks. So it's a really good time for intentions. Now, if you know your personal birth chart, you can look at your Scorpio house to see where it's a good idea to set intentions. But if you don't know your chart, or you just kind of want to work with the energy of Scorpio in general, new moons in Scorpio are a good time to set intentions around topics like psychic development, spiritual development, shadow work, psychological work, because Scorpio tends to rule things that are kind of the more taboo and deeper subjects. Sexuality is another one. So if you have any tensions in that area, it's a really good time to work with all of those kind of deeper topics, because Scorpio is a sign that is about transformation. It's about looking at what's underneath things. It's not about the surface level. Scorpio wants to go deep, talk about deep topics. So any intentions in those areas, it can be really good for that. Scorpio also tends to rule 8th house topics, things like taxes, debt, long-term investments, wills, and inheritances. So if you have any goals around long-term financial goals, this is a good time to set those intentions and set those goals as well. But of course, if you have intentions or goals you want to set that have nothing to do with any of these things, it's still okay to set them in a new moon. It's just saying, like, it's a little easier sometimes to work with the energy of what's going on astrologically, but you don't have to wait like 6 months if you really want to set a goal or set an intention now. So we have that right on Friday, November 1st. And then on the next day, Saturday, November 2nd, we have Mercury moving into Sagittarius. So Mercury is the planet of travel and communication. Mercury changes signs every 3 weeks or so, but he does go into a retrograde period 3 times a year. And later in the month, which I'll talk about a little later, on November 25th, he goes into retrograde. So instead of being in Sagittarius for 3 weeks, he's actually going to be in Sagittarius for I think it's like till the end of December almost. So he's going to be in there for a while, because what happens is he goes into Sagittarius and he travels through Sagittarius almost to the end. He stops, and then he moves all the way back through Sagittarius, stops again, moves forward again. So we have like a while with that Mercury and Sagittarius energy. So Mercury is how we communicate, Mercury is how we think about things. It's also travel related. And so when Mercury is in Sagittarius, we tend to want to talk more about big picture thinking. So this is things like big ideas like philosophy, religion, politics. I mean, yeah, politics, of course, there's an election coming up, right? But all these big picture kind of ideas, it's not so much about the details, it's about the big picture. So I see a lot of people talking about those things. Mercury in Sagittarius also tends to be a more humorous type of energy. Like people with Mercury and Sagittarius tend to like say funny things, but they also can put their foot in their mouth. Like that's sort of like a stereotype where they just blurt things out. So you may find that people are blurting things out a little bit more. Also, Sagittarius tends to rule topics like long distance travel, foreign travel, and so there may be a lot of talk about things like immigration or travel. There may be talk about like it's like planes and long-term travel. This isn't like short-term like in a car travel. This is like travel to like foreign countries, foreign policies, things like that may all come up in the news over the next few weeks. So big ideas like that. So on the bright side, Mercury in Sagittarius does have humor to it, but Mercury in Sagittarius on an extreme level, for some people it's dogmatic thinking. It's like thinking that their philosophy, their religion is the right one, and it can be on the negative side, fanaticism. So we could see some of these topics come up over the next couple of months. On Sunday, November 3rd, you can see the first weekend has a lot of stuff going on. We have Mars moving into the sign of Leo, but also on the day right before he changes signs into Leo, Mars is going to be directly opposite Pluto. Mars is going to be at 29 degrees of Cancer, opposite Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn. So both right at the end of their respective signs. This 29 degrees is called an anaretic degree, and basically it means it's a very volatile degree. It's sometimes when a planet hits this particular degree in a sign, it wraps things up, the story. And so we may see sort of a big culmination of a wrapping up of things that have happened since Pluto has been in Capricorn. Now, Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008. Last year, he spent a couple of months in Aquarius. He spent a fair amount of this year in Aquarius. This is his last little dip back into Capricorn before he changes into the sign of Aquarius, which we'll talk about in a bit in later in November. And he's going to be there for another 20 years. So he's really just wrapping things up. Pluto and Mars are both signs associated with, they both have associations with war. They have associations, Mars has association with things like fire, war, anything sharp like knives, guns, that kind of thing. So association with violence, but also will and drive for power. And Pluto's about power, Pluto's about death, Pluto's about transformation. And so Mars opposite Pluto historically has sometimes been times when there's been an escalation in conflicts, also explosives. Now, like explosive things happening. I certainly hope nothing like that happens, but it is that kind of energy. And sometimes it's metaphoric, right? Like people blow up at somebody else, or, there's power struggles, things like that. But I certainly hope in the world that there's nothing big. We've got enough problems, enough stuff going on in the world, but it's just saying that energy is what's going on out there. But Mars and Pluto are both part of like the emphasis for change, and they're part of that change into that new, we're changing into new energy. And so it does show that the energy is shifting. Mars is going to be retrograde. He's in December through to January, February. And so Mars is going to be spending a certain, like, more time in Leo and Cancer than he usually does. He usually spends about 2 months in a sign, but what's happening is he's going forward in Leo, stopping, moving back and backwards into Cancer, stopping and moving forward again. So we're having that Mars in Cancer, Mars in Leo energy for the next 6 months. Now, Mars in Cancer is very much like protecting what you love, protecting, what you consider to be home or family or value to you. Mars in Leo tends to be an energy that's more forceful, can sometimes be bullying. Sometimes, though, it's taking the lead, taking a stand, standing up for ourselves. So it's that kind of energy. So it's going to be switching from that more protective energy into something that's a little bit more like on the bad side, it could be bullying. But on the good side, it could be people standing up for themselves or taking the lead or taking charge on things. There may be some contentious energy just around that first week in the month of November. So on Monday, November 11th, the next big thing we have is Venus is going to be changing signs into Capricorn. So right now, Venus is in the sign of Sagittarius. Venus is love, Venus is romance, it's beauty, it's the arts. And when she's in Sagittarius, we want to have fun, we want to have ventures, we don't want to take things too seriously. We want to talk about big ideas as well. And in our art may reflect those big ideas about the world. This is also wanting to travel to foreign places for fun and for adventure. So it's a very like fun, light, flirty, adventurous energy. When Venus moves into Capricorn, that energy shifts. So Venus in Capricorn tends to be more nostalgic. It tends to be focused more on sort of classic aesthetics. So I expect like this, the lead up to kind of more like Christmas and the holidays, there's a lot more focus on nostalgia, on old fashioned things, because there's that connection with history. Venus in Capricorn likes the finer things in life. So we want to be wooed with things like good food and good wine. We want to enjoy like the earthly things, but it's this very classic kind of nostalgic aesthetic energy. It's also a more committed energy, whereas Venus in Sagittarius is like dating just for fun and having fun with things. Venus in Capricorn is like, okay, where are we going? What's the commitment here? What are we doing? So there's a sense of like a little bit more seriousness going on with that Venus and Capricorn energy. And then Friday, November 15th, we have a full moon. This one is at 24 degrees of Taurus. Full moons are when the sun and the moon are in opposite signs. This is sort of like intentions we set at the new moon come to fruition or culmination at this time. The full moon is like a time when there's heightened emotions because the moon is our emotions. There's, a lot more, there's all these, what do they call it? Anecdotal evidence of like the full moon being a time when there's, more accidents, more, the police are called more, there's more stuff going on, a lot more activity around the full moon. This particular full moon is one that's going to be conjunct, meaning together with Uranus. Uranus is at 26 degrees of Taurus. So this might be a full moon with a lot of unusual things. Uranus is about chaos, about unusual ideas. It is about sudden events, unexpected events, good or bad. And so that full moon may have a lot of unexpected energy around it, a lot of heightened energy. The moon, though, is also making a nice sextile with Neptune and Pisces. So we also may feel very psychic at this time. We may feel, that a lot of spiritual connection. This is a time when we might be feeling that, we're getting a lot of intuitive hits. We're maybe like having like really great readings, really unusual dreams. So watch for that mid-month on November 15th. On this day as well, we have Saturn going direct. So Saturn's been in retrograde for the past few months. The larger planets, the outer planets like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, we don't feel the retrogrades as much because they spend about half the year in retrograde. And they affect kind of things more on a world basis. But if you if it's happening around any planets in your chart, you might feel it more than others. But Saturn direct just means that like Saturn's energies are around things like restrictions, rules. It is around energies like being restricted by time, being a little more serious about things. So you may find that on Friday, November 15th and onward, you may feel like you have to get more serious about things. You may feel like, okay, I got to get organized. I got to get down to work. It's also, though, it's not always a bad thing. Like we might feel like we're more restricted, but it also might make us feel like there's more rules in place, that things are more organized and that we can get things done. Tuesday, November 19th, that is the big headline, and that is that Pluto is moving into sign of Aquarius on this day, and he's going to be there for the next 20 years. There's no more going back into Capricorn. It is the end of an era. Pluto has been there since 2008. We've had a little bit of previews, like I said, in the summer of 2023. April, I think it was like April, May, June, he was in the sign of Aquarius. This was almost like, like the trailer where you see like, hey, here's what the movie's going to be about. And then we had some of that from January to September last year of Pluto in Aquarius, giving us a taste of what's going on. Pluto's been back in Capricorn since September. He's like, he's like cleaning out the apartment before he moves out permanently. He's doing that last little cleanup. And Pluto in Capricorn, like I said, it's been since 2008, and it really was the Pluto in Capricorn started with, all those like the housing market going like crashing. In 2008, there was a big financial crisis, and that was kind of the start of the Pluto in Capricorn era. Pluto's about power, it's about transformation, and it's about death. It's about letting stuff go. And when Pluto lets something go, it's gone. It's gone for good. It's also like who's in power. And Capricorn is really about tradition. Capricorn is about government and big business. It is about traditional hierarchical authority. It's about the rules. And, we do need that to a certain degree. But what we saw was that, there was an increasing amount of power in things like big business and banks and governments, and also a rise in things like, more populist or fascist ideologies, all very Pluto and Capricorn type energies. And Pluto also exposes where power is being misused. And so, for example, when Pluto was in Sagittarius, which was 1995 to 2008, Sagittarius in association with religion, and there was when a lot of the church abuse scandals came out. So like, Pluto turns over the rock and shows you like, this may not be so good. Look at what's under here. And Pluto in Capricorn really showed us about how those in power, particularly those, like big businesses and big corporations and things like that, how they abused their power and how they've misused their power. So we've seen a lot of those. Now we're going into Pluto into Aquarius for the next 20 years. And Aquarius is very much about the people. So Aquarius is about community. Aquarius is also a sign that is somewhat rebellious as well. And Pluto hasn't been in, last Pluto in Aquarius period was in the I think it was like 1778 or so to 1790 something. It was anyway, the 1780s for the most part. And that is the era of the French Revolution. That's like the end of like the American Revolution and them forming their government. That's also the Haitian Revolution. So there's associations with revolutions. Now that doesn't mean that we're going to have big revolutions again. But it does mean that change is coming. Also, that's kind of like the start of the Industrial Revolution. So it's a time when things are going to change. It's a time when there's going to be a lot of changing energies. But we have to remember, like, revolutions can also be like extremely violent. And if you look at the French Revolution, there was the terror where just like regular people were killed. So we have to make sure that the power to the people, to the masses, that we don't have the tyranny of the masses going on as well. So Aquarius, though, also has associated with technology. And so we may see a rise in technology becoming more and more powerful, both for good and for ill. We'll have to see how it all plays out. But it is like, it's a big change. It is the end of an era as of Tuesday, November 19th. Thursday, November 21st, we have the sun moving into Sagittarius. It moves in Sagittarius at this time of year every year. Sun in Sagittarius, we want to focus on good times, Sagittarius energy. We want to focus on fun and joy and adventure. There is, again, a focus on big picture ideas, things like religion and philosophy. We're more open to learning from other cultures and other things, or other cultures, other ideas, pardon me. We are more open to learning those things. And so there is sort of pause, more optimism. I always think of like when the sun goes in Sagittarius, that's like when the holiday parties start. That's when we want to have fun. Good time to travel as well. And then Monday, November 25th, Mercury goes retrograde, and he'll be retrograde till December 15th. He'll be spending the whole time in Sagittarius. So if you are traveling, Mercury retrograde is not always the best time to travel. I would say before the 25th or after December 15th. But, you have to live your life, right? If you're traveling, you're traveling. Just Mercury retrograde, make allowances that it might take you extra time. There may be some snafus. Double check all, that you have your tickets, that, have your I's dotted, your T's crossed, everything like that. So Mercury goes retrograde on the 25th. I find like the beginning and the end tend to be the most disruptive. But look at where the Sagittarius house of your chart is, if you know your chart, to see where it might affect you. But, on a general level, Sagittarius tend to looks to be long-term travel. So there might be travel disruptions with things like planes or cruises or like more long-term type travel stuff. There may be some miscommunications around big ideas like philosophy and politics, things like that. So watch for miscommunication in these kinds of areas. Also, when it comes to like legal issues, really make sure that you're double checking things, any contracts, anything like that. So that's what I'm seeing for the month of November. It's definitely a shift in energy. The first part of November, I think, is going to be like, there's like an intensity there. There's some really intense energy going on. And then we have that full moon in the middle of the month, which might have some unusual events around it. We have Pluto changing into Aquarius, and then we have Mercury retrograde. So it's a busy month. Let me know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts about us moving into that new era of Pluto into Aquarius? What are your thoughts? Are you around, the astrology? Are you concerned, about the American election, whether you're there or not? All of those things, let me know. I would love to hear from you. If you like these videos, let me know. If you want more astrology from me, I have, like I said, a free newsletter on my website, which you can sign up for. I also do on my TikToks and Instagram a weekly just short version of the headlines, but if you want really detailed stuff, like I said, you can go to my Patreon for the detailed stuff for the week. You can also get an astrology reading from me, although I'm putting my Etsy on hold a little bit until Etsy's just, it's not doing great. It's a lot of bureaucracy, but anyway, I'm trying to switch over my website so you can just book a reading with me there, but I'm working on it. But anyway, if you want more astrology, go to my Patreon. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you. I'm wishing you all an amazing month of November. Let's hope we smoothly sail for the month of November. But I'm wishing you all peace and love and rock and roll.